This is the story of three men's suit traditions that spent 100 years pretending to be rivals, and the year, 2026, when the contest finally ended. America, Britain, and Italy each built an empire out of tailored cloth, and only one of them is still standing today. The way it won should bother you far more than the fact that it did. Start with the country that should have won, because it got there first. America. The modern suit jacket, the one hanging in your closet right now, the one you can buy off a rack in your exact size in about 4 minutes, is an American invention. Before Brooks Brothers, a tailored coat was a custom object, cut for one body by one pair of hands and priced accordingly. Then Brooks Brothers introduced the #1 sack suit, and everything changed. It was the first tailored garment ever mass-produced for men. No darts, no sculpting, no waist suppression. Just a soft, natural shoulder with almost no padding, and a jacket that hung straight off the body and quietly forgave nearly every flaw underneath it. Where British tailors built a suit up with canvas and internal structure, America stripped it down, made it comfortable, and sold it to everyone. And everyone bought it. Brooks Brothers didn't just dress America, it dressed the men running it. The same company put suits on 40 of the last 45 American presidents. For most of the 20th century, the American sack suit was the working uniform of the most powerful office on earth. That's about as close to winning as a piece of clothing can get. So what happened? America stopped showing up. The numbers tell it without any need for drama. In 2013, Brooks Brothers did roughly $880 million in sales inside the United States. By 2019, that figure had slid to $660 million. The American man had been walking away from the suit for years, long before anyone was willing to say it out loud. Then 2020 arrived. The offices emptied. The meetings moved onto screens where nobody could see your trousers, let alone your shoulder line. And in July of that year, Brooks Brothers, 202 years old, a company that had clothed presidents through the Civil War and 2 world wars, filed for bankruptcy. It survived, technically, but look closely at what survival actually looked like. The brand that invented the American suit came out the other side leaning into casual clothes and athleisure, chasing the very sweatpants and sneakers customer who had abandoned it in the first place. The inventor didn't lose a fight. The inventor forfeited. America built the modern suit, democratized it, put it on its presidents, and then set it down and never picked it back up. One contender down. Now go to the opposite extreme. Go to a single street in London, about 150 yards long, where they would sooner shut the doors than mass produce anything. Savile Row. This is where bespoke tailoring was born, and the houses here still make a suit roughly the way they made one in the 1800s. Henry Poole, the house that effectively invented the Row as a tailoring destination and first cut for Napoleon III, set the template that every house after it has followed. Huntsman has been cutting on the Row since 1849. To commission a true bespoke suit from a house at that level, you don't choose a size off a chart. You get measured as many as 28 separate measurements, and those measurements become a paper pattern that exists for your body and no one else's on Earth. Then the real work starts. A single Savile Row bespoke suit can take over 80 hours of handwork. Built entirely on a full floating canvas chest, a hand-stitched layer of horsehair and linen fused to nothing, just floating free against the wool that molds to you a little more with every year you wear it. Not 80 minutes. 80 hours, much of it stitched by hand, spread across a process that pulls you back for at least 3 separate fittings before the garment is even allowed to leave the building. Often 3 or 4 months from your first appointment to your last. A fused interlining, by contrast, the kind glued in at lower price points, gives you the shape on day 1 and loses it by year 3. The Row doesn't fuse. It floats. That kind of craft carries a price, and the price is exactly what you'd think. A bespoke commission on the Row generally starts somewhere between £4,000 and £6,000, And at a house like Huntsman, it begins closer to 6,000 or 7,000 for a two-piece, typically cut from a Super 150s or Super 160s wool that drapes rather than sits. For that, you get something near the finest tailored object a human being can make, a built-up structured shoulder, that full floating canvas chest, a suit engineered honestly to outlive the man who ordered it. So Britain makes the best suit. Doesn't that mean Britain wins? No. And here's the part the heritage brochures quietly leave out. Savile Row didn't conquer the world. It retreated from it. The local market for a 6,000-pound handmade suit is tiny, almost vanishingly small, so the Row now stays alive largely on international clients and traveling trunk shows, flying its cutters across oceans to find the few hundred people left on the planet who can keep the tradition breathing. The craft is real. The mastery is real. But a tradition that can only survive by being exported to billionaires isn't a living industry anymore. It's a collection. A magnificent one, with the lights still on and the brass plaques still polished, but a collection. Britain didn't get beaten. Britain got embalmed, 2 contenders down, which leaves Italy. And at first, Italy looks like the obvious deserving champion. Italy refused to pick a side in the war between American softness and British structure. Instead, it built a third way, and then made that third way the most desirable look on the entire planet. In Naples, tailors did something close to rebellious. They pulled the padding out of the shoulder almost entirely. They created the spalla camicia, the shirt shoulder, where the sleeve is set into the jacket the way a sleeve is set into a shirt, following the natural slope of your body instead of armoring over it. They cut a high armhole so the jacket moves with you instead of fighting you, and finished it with little signatures like the barchetta, a breast pocket curved like a tiny boat. The result is a jacket so light it can feel like you forgot to put one on. Vincenzo Attolini is credited with making the first genuinely unstructured Neapolitan jacket, and the city has spent the better part of a century refining that single idea. And the houses that grew out of it are obsessive in a way that makes even Savile Row look relaxed. Take Kiton, founded in 1968 just outside Naples by a man named Loro Piana, whose company motto is, and I promise I'm not embellishing, the best of the best plus one. A standard Kiton suit takes more than 25 hours of handwork. Their flagship line, the K50, takes 50 hours, all of it from a single master tailor, across more than 1,500 individual steps. A short drive away, Cesare Attolini makes its suits entirely by hand, 25 to 30 hours each, on a floor where 130 tailors each perform one specialized task and nothing else. Then there is Isaiah, the fourth pillar of the Neapolitan tradition, recognizable by its red coral emblem, which has spent the last 2 decades expanding globally while stubbornly maintaining the same soft construction philosophy, high armhole, unpadded shoulder, a house that proved the Neapolitan way could scale without becoming something else entirely. In Rome, Brioni built the structured Italian counterpoint, a sharper shoulder, a roped sleeve head, a harder silhouette, then dressed James Bond and helped ignite America's entire love affair with Italian tailoring the moment Gregory Peck stepped out in one in Roman Holiday in 1953. Brioni dressed Bond through much of the classic era, and when the franchise eventually moved its tailoring contract to Tom Ford in 2021, it signaled something about where the power in Italian luxury dressing had shifted. Ford's suits, sharper and more aggressively constructed than anything out of Naples, had by then become one of the most searched luxury suit names on the planet. Further north, Zegna, founded back in 1910, turned Italian cloth itself into a global standard, their finest wools, Super 150s, Super 180s, becoming the raw material other houses competed to work with. So here's the scoreboard going into the final round. America invented the suit and quit. Britain perfected the suit and froze. Italy made the suit beautiful, made it desirable, turned "made in Italy" into the 2 most valuable words in all of menswear, and stayed both commercially alive and genuinely aspirational, while the other 2 collapsed and calcified. Italy survives. Italy wins. Except Except the thing that won isn't quite the thing you think you're paying for. Because made in Italy, the phrase that beat both America and Britain, turns out to be carrying an enormous amount of weight it can't always support. In July 2025, an Italian court placed Loro Piana, the cashmere house owned by the luxury giant LVMH, under judicial administration, not some anonymous label. Loro Piana, one of the most sacred names in so-called quiet luxury, a byword for understated, money does not need to shout taste. The reason for the court order was worker exploitation buried inside its own supply chain. And this is where the numbers stop being about craftsmanship and start being about something much uglier. Investigators found that Loro Piana had subcontracted production through front companies with no real manufacturing capacity of their own, to Chinese-owned workshops operating inside Italy. In one of them, police found 10 Chinese laborers, 5 of them undocumented, forced to work as much as 90 hours a week, 7 days a week, paid €4 an hour, and sleeping in rooms set up illegally inside the factory itself. According to the court ruling, the intermediary had been producing those jackets for Loro Piana at around €118 a piece. On Loro Piana's own website, comparable cashmere jackets sell for €3,000 to more than €5,000. That is the survivor. And it wasn't even a one-off. Loro Piana was the 5th Italian fashion house pulled in by that same Milan court since 2023, following units tied to Valentino, to LVMH's own Dior, to Armani, and to another Italian label. A pattern, not an accident. The court found that Loro Piana had culpably failed to oversee its own suppliers, and that it did so in the pursuit of higher profits. So let's be honest about what actually happened in this contest. The label says Italy. The myth says a Neapolitan grandfather and 1,500 loving stitches. And for Kiton, for Attolini, for Isaiah, that myth is real. Those hours and that handwork genuinely exist, and they are extraordinary. But made in Italy, on its own, isn't a guarantee of any of it. It is a marketing phrase with a legal definition loose enough to stretch over a €118 jacket sewn by exploited migrant workers and sold for the price of a used car. Which brings us back to the question we started with. 3 traditions entered. Only one survives 2026. The winner is Italy, but not for the reason anyone wants to believe. Italy didn't survive because its hands are the best. On pure craft, Savile Row's 80 hours of floating canvas construction can stand toe-to-toe with anyone alive, and it is quietly dying anyway. Italy didn't survive because it was the most honest or the most democratic. America was both of those things, and America went bankrupt. Italy survived because it understood the one thing the other two never did. In luxury, the suit was never really the product. The story was the product. America sold a garment, and the moment men stopped needing the garment, America had nothing left to sell. Britain sold craftsmanship, and craftsmanship priced itself straight into a museum. Italy sold a feeling, heritage, romance, 2 words stitched onto a label, and a feeling has no factory, no rent, and no expiration date. That's why Italy is the last one standing. Not because it makes the best suit, because it sells the best myth. And in 2026, the myth is the only part of the suit that still reliably turns a profit. So the next time you run your hand down a soft Neapolitan shoulder and feel the difference, ask yourself which difference you're actually feeling. The 1,500 stitches, or the story you were sold to make you believe they were always there.